Hey there guys, I'm here and we're going to be playing which version of this wrestler was the best. We're going to start off pretty simple here. We got Cody Rhodes. We got the American Nightmare version. We got the Stardust. And then we got Dashing Cody Rhodes. Looking at this, you can just tell that he has outstanding acting skills. I mean, he can act as this baby face that you want to feel bad for. He can act as this unreal looking star thing. Then he can act dashing. So yeah, he really is that talented to where he can do all those gimmicks and succeed. And so obviously it's not the Stardust gimmick, and it's definitely not the Dashing either. It's the American Nightmare. It's the most intimidating version of him. Like, you actually feel like he might actually go and win the title whenever he is the American Nightmare. Definitely gives him the best push he's ever had. So yeah, I'm going with the American Nightmare. We're keeping it easy for right now. We got the Tribal Chief version of the Roman Reigns versus the Big Dog Roman Reigns. Obviously, he's succeeded way more with the Tribal Chief. He's even improved, like, overall. His overall in-ring storytelling has gotten out of this world. His storytelling is insanely good. And it wasn't that good until he started doing the Tribal Chief gimmick. This Tribal Chief gimmick really solidifies him as one of the greatest of all times. Like, honestly. Next up, we got the late Bray Wyatt. Unfortunately, he did pass away. But we gotta look at his three gimmicks. We got the Wyatt family version of him. We've got the Fiend. And then we've got this kind of new version with the whole Uncle Howdy thing. Personally, for me, this is easy. Other people think it's hard to answer. It's definitely not the new version. We didn't see enough of it. Just wasn't. It can't compare to the others. And then the Fiend, he had success with the Fiend. It was an interesting character. I enjoyed it, but not as much as I did the Wyatt family. That was definitely the peak of his career. It was, the Wyatt family was just so good. I thought whenever they kind of added Braun Strowman, that's kind of started when the Wyatt family started to not become as, I guess you could say, as a big deal, in my opinion. I think they were better without Braun Strowman. Not that he ruined it, that's just kind of when it started to not be good. So yeah, I'm definitely going with the Wyatt family version of Bray Wyatt. Next up, we got the broken Matt Hardy, and then we got the basic Hardy Boys, Matt Hardy. And obviously, not gonna lie, he has more of a character whenever he's the broken. But the Hardy Boys version is just so iconic. It's so good. In my opinion, one of the greatest tag teams of all time he's a part of in that version. So it's kind of unfair just because of, like, the history behind the gimmick. So I'm going to go with the Hardy Boys version. Next up, we kind of got, like, the Bloodline Usos versus the face-painted Usos. And I just want to say one thing. Looking at these two guys whenever they were in face paint, you don't know which one's which. In that picture, I could tell you the left is Jimmy. But when they're wrestling, you're not going to know the difference. Now you can tell the difference because they have made a name for themselves both individually. Not just Jay, even though Jay has more success individually. They both have made a name for themselves individually, and that shows a lot. It's really not a question. Just look at their accomplishments in the new version rather than the face paint version, and there's your answer. Next up, we got the Hollywood Hulk Hogan versus the whole Hulkamania with the red and yellow. This is basically red and yellow versus black and white. And I'm definitely going to go red and yellow. This is my favorite time of Hulk Hogan. Next up, we got Jon Moxley and Dean Ambrose. And this one, you do not have to agree with me. A lot of people probably are not going to agree with me, but it's my opinion. In my opinion, I'm just going to say it straightforward, I'm going Dean Ambrose. Dean Ambrose had good feuds. Dean Ambrose had a character. Dean Ambrose was, he really was good. Jon Moxley, what is his gimmick? His gimmick is that I like to bleed. That is his entire gimmick, and I'm not really a fan of it, just personally. Yeah, it might be entertaining to see this man get beat the crap out of and then start bleeding everywhere, but it's just not as good. He doesn't have as many good storylines, because you can't have that many good storylines when literally your gimmick is I bleed. And that's why I like Dean Ambrose. Yes, he was AEW World Champion in AEW as Jon Moxley, but I still have to take Dean Ambrose because I believe he had better feuds as Dean Ambrose. Next up, we got the Hugger Bayley versus the new Bayley, the heel Bayley that deflates the inflatables. Yes, that Bayley. When she turned heel, I am like, how in the world is this going to work? How are you going to go from hugging people to a heel? I did not think it would work. I thought they were going to end up having to turn her back face. But guess what? She succeeded with it, and I am super proud of Bayley because she has taken it to a different level than I thought she ever would have been able to. She is an amazing heel. But even though she's an amazing heel and obviously recency bias, you cannot get rid of how good she was as the hugger. Everybody loved her. Everybody cheered for her. I really liked the gimmick personally. And she definitely played it off so well. And I can't pick. I honestly can't pick between which version I like more. And so I'm not going to. This is a non-choice. Next up, we got Steampunk Becky Lynch versus The Man. This is definitely an easy one. When did everybody start saying that she is greatest of all time with the women's potential? People are arguing that she is now the greatest women's wrestler of all time. When she was the Steampunk, nobody saw her as that. Nobody even saw her as a world champion, in my opinion. When she became The Man and Big Time Bex and all that, now it's really a great version of Becky. I never saw that much coming out of Becky Lynch. She was kind of like, out of all those people that came up between Charlotte, Sasha, Bayley, Paige, and all of them, Becky really was the weakest of all of them, coming from NXT and her beginning of the WWE days. She was good, but not as good as the rest. And so she really showed herself whenever she became The Man. So that's what I have to go for. And she definitely had way more accomplishments as The Man. Next up, we got the versions of Asuka. We got the old NXT Asuka, where she had that long title reign. And then we got her early main roster runs, kind of where she finally ended her undefeated streak, where Charlotte beat her, and just that entire run. And then we have her more recent run where she kind of has all the mist and stuff, which is super cool. And then we got that really fun version of her with the Kabuki Warriors when she was teaming up with Kairi Sane. Alright, first up, the two runs I'm going to have to go ahead and take off would be the Kabuki Warriors. I really enjoyed it. The comedy was out of this world. Super fun. They were really cool together. Honestly, they made the women's tag titles in WWE. They were actually irrelevant championships whenever they had it, because they made them seem legit. But after that, after they split up, those titles no longer are really worth anything. And the recent run is cool, but it just doesn't compare to the other two. And all because of the accomplishment, I have to go for the NXT over the early main roster run. Just because of that title reign is so long and so amazing, it can't be topped. Next up, we got the Butch version, and then we got Pete Dunne. Of course, Pete Dunne was when he was in the UK, and then now Butch is when he's in the Brawling Brutes. Whenever they changed his name to Butch and had him coming out dressing like he was, I'm like, what in the world? They have screwed up Pete Dunne. What is this? And I still feel that he needs to switch his name back to Pete Dunne. He needs to go back to his old attire. He needs to go back to his old style, the whole breaking fingers thing and all that, because he's just not getting the push that I believe that he deserves, being kind of like a side guy for Sheamus. So I'm going to go with the Pete Dunne version. Alright, next up we got a pretty easy one. Of course, this is the versions of Drew McIntyre. And of course I gotta go with the three-man band version. He had way more success there. It was honestly one of the greatest factions of all time. So that's definitely what I have to go with. The Scottish Warrior doesn't compare, and neither does his early versions. Alright, so, my bad. Back to all seriousness. Yeah, the three-man band, out of here. That junk was garbage. And then his early run just doesn't really compare to the Scottish Warrior version. He carried the coronavirus era, as I call it, the COVID-19 era. He carried it being world title. He was great as world champion, so I wish he would get another reign, because he deserves a crowd. But the Scottish Warrior, this is when we can finally start taking him really seriously, see him as one of the top guys in the business. And so, yeah, I gotta go with the Scottish Warrior. Next up, we got the versions of Bobby Lashley. We got the 2000s version. We got the Hurt Business version where he actually became world champion and had a faction to himself. And then we have one of the worst feuds of all time, in my opinion. One of the most, just like, horrible, not for me, is whenever he was kind of like stole Lana from Rusev. They had a whole wedding and it got crashed by Rusev. And then he like had some segments in the bed where he's like hugging her and stuff. And it's just not for me. That is so not Bobby Lashley. It was completely stupid. But the Hurt Business, oh my gosh, I don't know what it was, but I was absolutely obsessed with the Hurt Business. I was so mad whenever they had Omos get involved and ruin the Hurt Business, because I'm a huge Cedric Alexander fan and also a big Shelton Benjamin fan, and so I guess that's partially the reason why I loved that faction overall. And Bobby Lashley, I really didn't like Bobby Lashley until he did the Hurt Business, and then I'm like, dang, he has this talent, I love it. The Hurt Business was so freaking good, and so I'm going with the Hurt Business. Next up, now we got the versions of Liv Morgan. Start off, we got the tag team reign now that kind of more recent that she has with Raquel Rodriguez, where she's teaming up with her. We've got her big run where she like comes out, nobody's expecting it, and she goes straight to the women's main event, becomes world champion, nobody's expecting it, and yeah, it was very surprising. I was super proud of her because I was always hating on Liv Morgan, saying that she wasn't going to do good and all that, and then she surprised me. And then we got the Suicide Squad, which I thought the Suicide Squad is a great idea, but they did them completely wrong, so it's really not in the running for being one of her best runs. And then we got like the whole like lesbian thing she did with Lana, just really wasn't for me. I'm not a fan of all the wedding segments that really any of like the things that Lana did other than being on Rusev's side, really wasn't for me, honestly. And so I just wasn't my kind of feud, I guess you can say. And so of course I got to go with like her whole main event. She's gonna shine whenever people actually start saying, "Dang, she has talent." So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the style of a video. This is something I've never done before. Hope you like it. Might do it again. So yeah, I'll see you on the next one.